Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of High Energy Girl. And today's really fun guest is Mark Effinger, aka Mr. Noots. Now, Mark has always had an interest in neuroscience, but after his wife died from a painkiller overdose, he knew that he had to create an experiential nutritional supplements so he could help others reach their highest brain potential. So Mark is now the Chief Product Officer for Nootopia and celebrated as a world-renowned formulator of nootropics, finding ways to make your brain operate at its highest capacity. We had so much fun on this chat. He's quite a character. So pay attention because at the end, he has a discount code for you guys if you want to try these amazing products. And he's also going to come back on after I try them so that I can give you guys some really good feedback. Anyways, let's go and say hello to Mr. Noots. Hey everyone, welcome to High Energy Girl, a podcast helping women to age stronger because it is never too late to get fit, be strong, and feel sexy. I'm your host, Tracy Gluhige, health coach and personal trainer and founder of highenergygirl.com. Each week, we will either have a guest interview, which will provide you encouragement or an actionable tip to help you age stronger, or I will do a solo episode. Please also join our awesome Facebook group called High Energy Girls, and I'm looking forward to see you on the inside of that group and hope you enjoy today's show. Sleep is completely underrated, and so many women our age struggle with a really solid night's sleep. You want to know how I fixed it for me? Well, one of the things I did was I got a chili pad because I was always too hot and I'd be like tangled up in my covers, kicking them off, pulling them on. I could never find that sweet spot temperature, you know, the whole Goldilocks thing, too hot, too cold. And then I got a chili pad. My husband has his own control. I have mine, so I keep mine way cooler than he likes it. I'm never overly hot anymore. It is fabulous. And I even use it all winter long because you can adjust the thermostat any way you like. And I really love the white noise, the little hum that it plays. So the Chili Pad company, which is called Chili Sleep, has lots of amazing new products. They have pillows, bed sheets, weighted blankets, and the old-fashioned mattress protector chili pad that I have. It is amazing. So for a special discount price, head on over to bit.ly/chillsleep, CHILLSLEEP, and you will be thanking me later. Hey, Mr. Noots, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Awesome to see you, Tracy. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Oh, I'm excited to learn all the juicy details about you. So for the listeners that don't know you yet, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Well, we can go way, way back, but I've been involved in chemistry since I was 6 years old, science since I was 5.5, built my first radio when I was 5.5 years old. And then through a number of circumstances, including a irrational drug called Accutane when I was in the military in the 80s, and then the discovery of my own health potential with an ND-MD, I was able to turn everything around that drug had caused. And then, as most of us have in life, I had a number of incredible events, like 3 home births. I had 3 children born at home. And the last one, the midwife gave my wife 4 oxycodone to settle the pain. She tore a little bit, and rather than having an episiotomy. And a decade later, she committed suicide on that very same painkiller. And so that led me into recovering my chemistry set, dusting off my chemistry set, and saying, why do people become addicted to things? And what can I do to help improve cognitive performance while at the same time building a foundation for people to actually have a better life through biochemistry?
Wow, that just like made my heart hurt, like hearing that, like unbelievable. I am so sorry.
Yeah, it was not fun. It was not fun. It was really interesting, Tracy. When it happened, I can talk about it now without, I've been through a lot of trauma therapy, thank God. But at the time, I had a programmer sitting in my car next to me. I was coming to pick up my kids to take them to lunch. And there was an emergency vehicle pulling into my driveway. And the neighbor, who was a private eye, said, hey, you need to get over here quick. And I ran upstairs, and there was my wife surrounded by a halo of oxycodone, OxyContin, and methadone bottles and syringe, and a bottle of really cheap Rhine wine that she had emptied. And and then they were about to stick a 6-inch needle in her heart to try to resuscitate her and see if there was anything left of her brain. So,
wow. Well, I don't know how you get over that, but it has led you to where you are now. So
absolutely.
What have you discovered with your 5-year-old's chemistry set? Hopefully you upgraded it. My husband would love that. He's like all into Tandy Leathercraft again.
Oh, I love that. So there's the original chemistry set from 1967.
Wow. That's awesome. That is awesome. That is hilarious. My husband would love that stuff.
I love it. Well, it's really interesting. We all think that many people think that you can, direct every stage of your life. But I've found, for myself at least, and many of my associates, is that it's the happy accidents as well as the cruel accidents that end up creating a new pathway for you that is fulfilling, is interesting. It keeps you on the edge of excitement, sometimes white knuckle, sometimes otherwise. But it's really been an incredible journey to discovering like what my capabilities are. You think, like, I've been an athlete for most of my life. I was a competitive tennis player when I was young, and then I got into to training, weightlifting, bodybuilding, competitive running, competitive bicycling, free climbing in Yosemite, motorcycle road racing, car racing, and every one of those puts you through another challenge level. But when your life has crisis in it, that's when you really it's the real test of your malleability, your capability, your endurance. I like the term indomitable. It's one of my favorite terms in terms of how do we define, right, what we're made of. And so, yeah, so I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I've survived a bunch of these events, and you come out of them with a new insight. You're humble. You're definitely humbled by these events. And then, but the other part of it is it also gives you a sense of awe, because you start relating to people that you otherwise wouldn't have necessarily had any kind of a connection with. And the other is when I'm super fortunate because I've been able to take some of these things that I was kind of sideline interested in, like chemistry and cognitive performance. And then suddenly it's very bright in your eyes going, this is not something you're toying with, brother. This is something you are going to work to death. You're going to mine every aspect of this technology or this chemistry and figure out how it applies to human beings and helping to make them better, stronger, smarter, faster, right? More indomitable. So, yeah.
Good word. Well, I love all of that. And I want to be over here, right? All those adjectives that you just described, those power words. But how did you get from this trauma to doing what you're doing now? And then we'll dive deep into that.
Awesome. All right. So I had just helped a guy sell a company in northern Washington, right on the Canadian border, just about, in Blaine, Washington. A guy named David McGinnis, who founded a company called PR Web. And so I had a little bit of bandwidth, and I had an incredible cohort of people that gave me a soft landing. And so I took my 3 kids. We moved to the absolute other end of the state because we were living right next to Portland, Oregon, and Vancouver, Washington. And then we moved to the exact opposite end of the state, to the other Vancouver, Canada. But we're in Blaine, Washington. That's the gateway city on Interstate 5 to drive to Canada and White Rock. And I started just, as I'm going through the grief and trying to figure out how to keep alive and how to not to break down every day and cry bawl your eyes out as you're trying to deal with the fact that, this person that was kind of, that you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with was no longer available. You start putting these interesting pieces together. And so for me, chemistry was cathartic. So I started going, okay. And I took this thing called pyroglutamic acid, which is kind of an amino acid chelate. And what I found was that if I took 6 of those big horse pills at night, the next morning when I woke up, one is I would sleep better. And the next morning when I woke up, I would be really crisp for about 2.5 hours. And I thought, and that was kind of an aha moment. Wow, I can take this thing at night, and in the morning, my performance increases. And at the same time, here's a show and tell, right? So for your listeners, show and tell. So at that time, I co-owned a company called Idea Fisher with this guy right here, the founder of Century 21 Real Estate. It's Marsh Fisher right there. So we did brainstorming software, and we were the most popular brainstorming software in the world at the time. And so I had this base of really smart people who use my software that I could reach out to and say, hey, would you be willing to try some really crappy tasting stuff that I'm putting together and tell me if it makes you perform better? And they said, of course, Mark, we trust you. And so I did. I started sending them these blank test tubes of this crappy tasting powders. And what I did was I started combining 2 nutrients or extracts or supplements, and I'd go through a few dozen iterations of it and go, oh, okay, this seems to work. This ratio of these 2 compounds seems to work. I would send it off to anywhere from a couple hundred to over 1,000 of my people in this beta test that were software customers of mine. And then they would tell me on an online poll, they tell me how it made them feel. Like, it made me puke my guts out, or it was awesome, or it made me feel like an idiot, or my dog ate it, something like that. So it was great. And the interesting thing was, as I kept doing that, I kept pairing up molecules and then combining them with the ones that proved out to be good. So I'm suddenly have 4 molecules, and suddenly 6 or 8 or 9, 10, 11. And I got up to about 26 different molecules. What I realized, I kind of backtracked, and I realized I was solving incremental problems that people had, like oxidative stress, or like adaptogenic, like adrenal burnout, or like, low cognitive performance because they had low acetylcholine in the brain. So they couldn't think straight, or they had lousy focus because they didn't have enough dopamine flowing, or they were depressed or unable to control their emotions because their serotonin was out of whack, or they couldn't sleep at night because their GABA wasn't happening. So I started focusing on these 5 primary neurotransmitters and going, aha, if you started looking at those neurotransmitters like a bar graph, or an equalizer you might have on your stereo system. Remember when they had stereo systems? I'm clearly an old guy.
We have one in the garage so my husband can play his drums. Yes, I know what it is.
I love it. That's awesome. By the way, does he have any favorites for bands or for drummers?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm trying to remember the name. Is there a name called Dave Miller? Is that a name? He plays, I think he plays a song to that. He plays a lot of old stuff, maybe Van Halen, old stuff. I mean, he's 64.
Okay. So we grew up in the same genre. Yeah. When Eddie Van Halen and the rest came out. So So Chester Thompson will be a drummer that he will know. Let's see. Well, obviously Phil Collins was a great with Genesis, and then solo and the rest.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
then,
He listens to Genesis. That's
dig
another
it.
one.
So Alan White from Yes would be another one, and Bill Bruford from Yes and King Crimson and those bands. So yeah. He and I would groove. It's so funny you say that because I've got two guitars over here. I've got a fretless bass, Yamaha bass, and I've got an acoustic electric, and then I've got a studio going up here in our building. So yeah,
Cool.
I think it's mandatory for us old guys to still think that we're going to be on stage with Eddie.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, my kids are musical. My middle one loves playing his guitar. He's pretty damn good too. But
awesome. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry I totally threw you off. So I have so many questions. So go ahead and finish about what happened to your people when you made these 5 different connections.
Okay, so this was kind of cool. So speaking of music, I had a recording studio in a slipshot recording studio in my home in Blaine, Washington. And my son and a handful of his friends stayed up until like 2 or 3, 4 in the morning playing music, right? And then the next morning they come into my room, my bedroom, which was down the hall, so I wouldn't be stay awake all night with that. And they said, "Dude, we need some of your Jesus juice." That was their term for this stuff. And so I mixed up a custom batch of this and made one molecular change, one change of the molecule. And I gave them drinks, and then they drank it, and then they came back, barged into my room 45 minutes later, and they said, dude, we just wrote a song. We haven't written a song in a month, let alone in 4 hours, or 40 minutes. He goes, "This stuff is amazing. How do we get more?" And so they really loved it. And so that was like a big aha moment for me. So I sent that out to my test case. And then at the time I was single, and I was on a date. I was on a Match.com date down in Bellingham, Washington, and at a little tiny bar. And the girl I had the date with was a real estate agent locally there. And she had dated a guy that was the lead photographer for Sports Illustrated. And this tall British dude, and he happened to be up at the bar. And she goes, "Mark, you got to meet this guy. He's my ex-boyfriend. He's a photographer for Sports Illustrated. He's the coolest guy, and he's British," which always, it's always endearing. And so he sat down with us, and we had a great conversation. He and I were just hitting it off. He and I hit it off better than she and I hit it off. And so I said, what's your biggest challenge from a health perspective? And he goes, "Oh man," he goes, "I can't focus to save my life. My energy goes all over the place." So of course, what do you do when you're in a little bar in Bellingham, Washington, next to the college, is you pull out a test tube of white unmarked powder and a weird looking capsule. All of our capsules are interesting looking. And I gave it to him and I said, "Hey, try this, man." He goes, "Awesome." He goes, "I'm heading to South Africa tomorrow to shoot the guy they call Blade Runner, Pistorius, the guy that had these carbon fiber feet." And and he texts me from South Africa the next day, and he goes, "Dude," he goes, "I got the shot. They had 20 handlers trying to tell me my job, and I got the shot anyhow. How do I get more of this stuff?" And that was it. And he forced me into creating him some stuff, selling it to him in what looked like an illicit deal at a restaurant one evening about 4 months later. And that was kind of the catalyst for the launch. And since then we've, my company was acquired back in September of this year by Optimizers. We spent a couple years dating and getting to know each other.
Oh, I love those guys. I take a lot of their stuff.
Yeah, that's they're Matt Gallant and Wade and Andy said, we spent 2 years getting to know each other and building a product line, and then in September we pulled the trigger and said, "Come on, man, let's play full time. Let's quit messing around with this thing." Let's go change the world.
So is it under your brand still, or is it under their brand?
We built a brand together called Nootopia. So nootopia.com. And because we decided that it was such a unique product line that it actually needed its own, it was different than magnesium. It was different than protein drinks. It was different than gut health products, which is what, they're so well known for. We separated, created this new, that's where Mr. Noots came from. This was fun. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So they bought thousands of dollars worth of my product over about 6-month period. And they actually met me on Facebook by a good friend of mine, Brad Costanzo, who is a well-known executive coach, life coach, who poured out a box of my product, all these funky test tubes of powders and stuff. And he said, "This is the stuff. This is awesome. This is customized for me. This is the stuff that works." And huge thread. And Matt saw it. Matt Glansat, who's the CEO of Bioptimizers, and said, "Can you hook me up with this guy?" And so we do a Zoom call. Myself and our COO is in London. Matt's in Panama, and I'm at the time right now I'm in Iowa, in Burlington, Iowa, right on the Mississippi. And I've got a laboratory here, a 24,000 square foot lab. And so we did this. So we had this great phone calls. He starts buying thousands of dollars worth of product, and he starts putting together a massive Google spreadsheet of every characteristic of every product, of how it made him feel, of the different customizations that I did for him, and how that performed for him. And then 6 months into it, in November, late November of that year, which was 2020, he said, "Here's the deal, man." He goes, "I think that we should create a product or create a product line. I love these 9 solutions that you've done. Every one of them works with the other. They all work. They all perform really well, regardless of the customization profile you do for them. So here's the deal. I don't want to ruin your brand if this doesn't work, if our relationship doesn't work, or if you decide." He goes, "We don't want to jump in bed and end up with chlamydia a week later." So we got a vocoder for my voice. So I was like, I sounded like this. And we just put a Mr. Noots still image, and we did a Zoom call, a Facebook Live, and we announced these products and those things, and it worked. It was not profitable, but it worked, and we built a company out of it. And then 2 years later, we decided we still liked each other, and that and we did. Neither of us had VD, so we were. So it's been incredible. It is. If I can soapbox for a moment, Tracy, I assume that you've not only had your own practice as you do, but you've also probably worked for and worked in companies, whether it's corporate America or whatever, at some point in your life. Is that true?
Yes.
So, the feeling of being in a company that doesn't honor you, or that feels like you're a drone, or you're it just, and they're draining the life out of you. They're soulless.
Oh yeah.
Bioptimizers has been such a revelation. It is the most, and this is my 18th company, so I'm not new to this. This is not my first rodeo. Is the people, the not only the hiring practices, but the people and the culture are. I've never met a company with this deep, or loving, or supportive, or encouraging, or promoting of a culture. We have a meditation every Monday morning. We have a meditation with everybody in our company, over 100 employees now, where we meditate on the objective, which is to make biological optimization available to everyone on Earth. And we just had a corporate, we had 2 solid days on Zoom of corporate meeting. Day 1 was, here's what we've done, here's what we're going to do. And then day 2 was, we had a 360 review, is where maybe your people take, your mentors or advisors in the company, and the people you work with say how they worked, how did you work? And they kind of give you, like a rating system. we had what most people consider a 360 review, but it was 5 people who basically told you what a rock star you were. And if there's any areas you need to work on, they would, in a positive way, say, if there's any hole in this, I think this might be valuable, or I know this guy that I think you would really jive with that would be helpful, or this girl, or this guide, or this coach, or this therapist, or might be a really cool for you. And it was the most uplifting environment, and everybody in the company got this exposure. And I've worked with Will Murray, who is the co-founder of Covey, the 7 Habits guys. He was my culture mentor. Yeah, I mean, incredible. And the guy that funded Nike was my finance mentor, Jack Nichols, who did that. And I've had an opportunity to work with exceptional people, and I've never found better than this organization. So I'm off the soapbox, but it's important to know that I would not have pulled the trigger on this deal if I didn't feel like it was an improvement in my life. I've got a roboticist right over here in the corner, in another office over here that we just hired. And he had just been in a really crappy company culture and environment. And and we've been working together for 6 months on a consulting arrangement. He plugged into the second day of these meetings on this review, and then the Christmas party we had shortly after that, which is all online as well. And he said, nice. He marches into my office, and he's big smile on his face, and he goes, "I'm in."
Aw, that's sweet. Yeah, I had both Matt and Wade on my show long time ago, and separately to talk about different things. And awesome. So I still take their magnesium. I need to order some more of the gut stuff. But I do the 2 different enzymes and the probiotics.
Oh, so, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I've got new stuff. I've got way cool new stuff for you, Tracy.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it. I want to hear all of that, because tell me all those adjectives again that you can kick
We're going to be indomitable, right?
Indomitable.
Unbreakable, yeah. Indomitable. Well, you, I just recently got a rotator cuff tear, very serious. And I was being an idiot, and I just got some aerobic rings, and I was trying to do an iron cross, and I can't.
You found out the hard way, huh?
Yeah.
Classic.
It's funny, but so I'm healing on that, and actually I'm taking a bunch of Masszymes, which is one of the enzymes. They take that, yeah. Yeah, it's incredible and it really does accelerate healing. It's great. And Capex as well. So one of the cool things, or one of the things that I specialize in, and what my division of the company, which is called, again, Nootopia, because it's about nootropics, which are brain enhancing, nutraceuticals, is what we call state change. Like, how do you get into a state? One of the things I wanted to emphasize. So we talk about, like, I'm sure that you've hurt yourself. You cannot be an athlete for this long without at one point, tearing or ripping or bruising or damaging something.
All of it.
So, right. Yeah. That repair process is really critical, but it also is a huge reminder how fragile we are, and how important it is for us to reinforce all of the supporting architecture of our bodies and our minds, so that when we do have when an issue does come, like a rotator cuff tear, and I was just getting back into tennis at the same time, which is really bad, we need to have enough of a support lattice work to be able to create an environment where we can overcome the pain, the tear, the bruise, the whatever, the fault, and we can create a kind of a fault tolerant physicality for us. And that also goes for the brain, of course. So my whole thing is, what if you could customize and optimize your state of being for the things that are important to you for the period of time that they're important. And does that make sense at all? Or do I need?
Yeah, like, so what I'm hearing you say is, say I have a project to work on that takes my like focus, like I'm writing something. And so I need to go from crazy mom stuff over here to, okay, focus on this project now. Like that?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So that's a great one, because focus is one that when we think of cognitive enhancement, if we're not thinking about Adderall, we're thinking about, okay, how do I get my mind into a state of performance? And oftentimes focus is that thing. And I'm literally the poster child for ADHD. So I live this one. And in fact, Chastity, who is my lead support down there, and my sweetheart as well. I'm lucky to have somebody that I love that also makes cool stuff with me. So she just brought me this, and that's a thing called Focus Ferocity right now, but it's Ultimate Focus is the new brand that we're leading to it. Focus Ferocity was a little bit, we found people trying to jump out of planes, doing but it's an incredible solution that basically brings up dopamine, brings up a bit of noradrenaline. So you've got dopamine combined with noradrenaline, but doesn't reduce or negatively impact your serotonin and GABA. It actually has a moderately high level of GABA. So what you have is you've got the energy and motivation that you get from the noradrenaline. You've got the capacity to focus that comes from the dopamine, as well as the reward system, right? So you get the reward and the accomplishment and that feedback loop. And then you have the GABA that's coming up that says, hey, dude, it's cool. You don't have to be an asshole to be focused. And then you have the serotonin that comes, right? Yeah.
The feel-good hormone.
Yeah. So it's super, super important. So getting into state change or state optimization and then figuring out what works for you is kind of what we do. So if I want to be like more loving with my sweetheart and with the people around me, I know the components that I need to take. Like I'll do an ultimate focus on one side, and then I'll take an upbeat or a brain flow on the other, and that'll give me the dopamine and the serotonin. So now I'm a nice guy, and I'm not barking and biting their heads off when they come in and distract me. But I'm still really focused, but I'm also enjoying the focus. So it's not a focus where I'm feeling like gritty, like I'm into this focus, but I'm in.
Don't bug me.
Right, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So and that's where I go. If I do Adderall, that's where I would go, and that's why I built this as a solution to help people get that level of focus, but not lose their sense of humanity. So
nice. That's important these days. Oh boy. No, so it sounds like that's your chemistry, is you're combining this with this so that you can get the results of both synergistically. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. And everybody, since everybody has their own unique biochemistry and neurochemistry, I realized in the process, I did 3,000 prototypes to come up with the first working product. So it was 4 years of just buried in biochemistry and neurochemistry. But what I found was that on the last about 1,800 of them, I figured out that if I didn't customize them, that the results were going to be, I was going to get about a 30 to 42% optimum. I was going to get 20 to 30% was going to be just neutral. And then I was going to get some negative response. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I customized it based on their age, weight, sex, their eating habits, their workout habits, what nutrients or supplements they take already, what meds they're on, and then what their biggest challenges are and their objectives, what I could get out of that at the end was I could customize the ratios of different components, and I could make it so it had a 97, 98% efficacy. And that was a huge leap for me in terms of, this is predictable performance. So, nice. So we did that. So every product that we make at Nootopia is custom made for each client.
I was wondering because I was on your website and I saw that it starts with a survey.
Correct. Two surveys, actually. So one is a neurochemical survey, like what's your neurochemical makeup? What are you dominant in? And then the next one is that same thing I just shared, like how old are you? What do you eat? What, I'm right now, for the last 10 years, I've been working on perimenopausal, postmenopausal products and premenopausal products for women, because that is a very dynamic, changing hormonal balance issue. And there are ways to mitigate the downside issues with that, and be able to solve some of those issues, because they make such a they can be either a traumatic issue or they can be a jumping off point for better performance later on in life. And I'd like to go towards the latter.
Yeah, for sure. Like, do you have something, because I'm past all that menopause stuff, like 12 years. So nice. What I'm doing now, my focus now, and this is what I preach, is helping women age stronger and healthier rather than sicker and weaker. So when I said I feel better than I did when I was 25, I wasn't kidding. So do you have something, you said like a whole line for women, do you have something to help with us getting stronger or increasing muscle?
Oh, yeah. So on the Bioptimizer side, we have a number of those things, including vegan versions of most of the stuff that we do. For people that lean towards vegan or vegetarian type diets. Wade, as you probably know, is a world champion bodybuilder, but he's also a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So, and he just retired. He just finished his last world champion competition. So the Ironman in Venice Beach, California.
Wow, that's phenomenal. He went all the way to Ironman. How many eggs does he eat a day?
0. He's
really?
literally, yep. He's a vegetarian. I know it was freak to me. I spent a few days with him not long ago, last summer in Venice Beach. And it was amazing to see the consumption of food, his ability to manage his ghrelin response, the ghrelin gremlin.
Yeah.
And right. And to actually, and be with 100% pure vegetarian diet.
So is he vegan or vegetarian?
He's vegetarian. Yep.
Okay. So what are his protein sources?
A bean and similar. And then, so he's got a pretty clean, I guess you would consider it a clean diet. And his only comment after his competition recently was, I should have bulked up harder. Like, he felt his leanness was there, striations and the rest that you have when you're looking for a good bodybuilding physique, but he felt he could have been bigger. So yeah, he's
interesting. I think it's got to be hard to get big on a vegetarian or vegan diet. I mean, vegetarian, if you're eating lots of eggs, I can see, because eggs are like really the best form of protein, in my opinion. But like not having eggs, I mean, like a serving of beans has like 6 grams of protein. My trainer wants me to have 125. I'm not looking for bodybuilding, because that diet, like I would never want to put my body through that stress.
Yeah.
I just want to be strong and have fun at the gym, like it's my playground.
And don't you, well, and isn't, I mean, there is a beauty in being able to sculpt our physique. And like I was doing pretty progressive weights and bodybuilding training when I was in my 20s. And I went from 135, I'm 6'3". I went from 135 to 215.
Wow.
And I went from hyper lean, skinny fat. I was an athlete, but I didn't eat well. I didn't know, I was a lot of junk food and those things, to being, to getting down to that 8 to 10% body fat. And it makes such a profound difference in your world. I remember, are you ready for this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had this cute girlfriend, Elise, and I'd been training for about, I think it was 18 months or so. So I'd gotten up to that 215 and I was pretty bulk, but I wasn't ripped, but I was lean. And I had my shirt off and I'm in the bathroom and I can see into the bedroom and I'm drying my hair. I'm in the Air Force at the time, very short hair, right? But I'm drying what little hair I had left. and my arm is up. And so my lat is, I've got a nice butterfly going on there. And I'm doing this and I look over at her and I see her looking at me and I see her looking at me with that, man, I want that guy. And my distortion in my own view of myself was I'm still that skinny 135-pound guy that I had always been as a distance runner and bicyclist. And yet she's looking at me like I'm her next meal. And it was such a critical point in my life, because then I looked back in the mirror and go, holy crap, man, look at the shoulders on that guy and look at his traps. And, like I looked like a man, not a boy
like, shit,
anymore.
That's me.
Yeah. It was really cool. And it was a wake-up call for me that I had the power to be able to create the person, the man that I wanted to be. Obviously, the other side of that was, we talk about being in the gym. The other side is the discipline required to build a body translates to everything in your life, every aspect of your life, right? Every component of that is a discipline that trains you. I remember we used to go, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. This is back in the 80s, early mid 80s, is Scott Hazelton, the guy that trained me, and I would go to Skipper's Fish and Chips every Sunday after church. And we would try to see how many pieces of fish we could eat. And it was, I think 27 was the max. It was like 27 pieces of fish, That was our protein source. Oh my
gosh. That's so funny. When I met my husband, it was 1989 and he had been lifting weights and he was with a trainer. He was pretty strong. I want to say he told my son he benched like 360 at the time.
Holy crap. Yeah. That's strong.
Yeah, he was strong. And he was taking some sort of a supplement. And gosh, I wish I could remember what it was. But it was not a steroid. It was a natural supplement. They still sell it today. But he's like, yeah, that just made me really strong. And my kids that are in their 20s now, they're all looking it up like, oh, yeah, we can still get that. Well, yeah, you need to get more for dad because now he's skinny and, he's a mountain biker. And I do CrossFit and I had him join. Well, for Christmas, I gave him like 3 private lessons at my gym to see, but he has a rotator cuff injury and I want to talk to you about that. And he had surgery, but it never repaired correctly. He does not have full mobility. So holding a barbell and doing a press, not a chance. So my goal with him is to help him increase his mobility and his strength. Because all he cares about is being able to do push-ups. He's almost a 6th degree black belt. So that's the only thing that's required. But I want him to not look like a skinny, scrawny old man. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I sure do.
Anyway,
and that's where things like Masszymes and Capex can come in, where like Masszymes were developed specifically for bodybuilders because the amount of protein they were intaking a day, the amount of food they were intaking a day, you're taking a day when you're trying to gain mass, those things is tough. And the gastric upset that can occur from that can be pretty intense. So, and then I'm good friends with a guy named Sean Phillips. I don't know if you know Sean and Bill Phillips of Body for Life.
Yeah, I remember those Body for Life days. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and to get into that kind of shape, you want to have the protein intake, but you also need to be able to process the protein.
Right.
Now what they did is they created protein shakes and those things, and that became EAS Nutrition, and we all know that, and Metrix before that. But to be able to process that much, like steak or chicken, and chicken and broccoli, right?
Power meals.
Right. Yeah. No, I've done, when you're doing meal prep and your whole refrigerator looks like little plastic containers full of exactly the same thing.
Oh, I never did that. I could never. But you said something about you have a product that helps your body repair.
Yes. So yeah, a couple things. One is, so Masszymes and Capex are absolutely two things, and you can do up to 100 Masszymes a day without causing problems. You may be a little more frequent in the bathroom, but otherwise fine. And the enzymatic activity there dramatically increases basically the HGH output and some of the other factors that will start doing repair. It's critical. Matt just recently had an Achilles tear. Matt Gallant of Bioptimizers, an Achilles tear. He had the operation. They told him 6 months, be off of it for 6 months. 6 weeks later, he was still in the gym and rocking it.
Wow, Achilles is bad.
Yeah,
that's a big one. So and it was just for Masszymes and Capex.
Yeah, Masszymes. Those are incredible solutions.
I have them both.
And then what I do is Focus Ferocity or Ultimate Focus. Now the product, the way I built that, I constructed that is it is a dopaminergic solution with a high GABA output as well. GABA is also works as a pain receptor type of mitigator. So it can help plug the pain receptors and give you relief without causing sideline issues like you might have from an NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory.
Oh, yeah. Advil.
Yes. Yep, exactly. Those kinds of things, which can also be difficult on your liver. That can be challenging to your liver as well. I don't know if you know, but the number one cause of liver failure in America is acetaminophen. It's
really?
Yep.
I know somebody who died from taking too much Tylenol. She was a surrogate mom and she was in a lot of pain after the birth and she ended up dying. Very young age.
It's awful. It's awful. And it's interesting that it's, you and I can go get it freely and we can take as many as we want. It's, as an OTC. It's that stuff.
Oh, I never take any of that garbage.
I love that about you.
I just don't. Even like when I had my knee surgery, they gave me a pain pill and that was it. I never took them. I didn't like the way it made me feel.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting you say that because the thing that killed my wife was when she had those 4 oxycodone. She didn't take them all at once, but that became her muse. She felt powerful. She felt like the fact she was kind of an introvert. She felt that her introversion wasn't a problem. She didn't feel like if she was in public, she felt like she could be more, more collected and more vocal. Have more verbal fluency and those kinds of things. So it's interesting that it reacts. In fact, what I did when I started on that journey after her suicide was I started hanging out at a rehab center and asking people that were coming in that were like literally wasted, asking them why didn't you come here earlier? What keeps you addicted? And these kinds of questions. And it was really powerful to hear their answers, to get their responses, and collecting that data was incredible. You found out that it's embarrassing, that it can be very expensive, it can black mark you to your employer. You're going to be off work for 6 or 12 or 72 weeks, whatever happens to be the length of time that they need to recover you. You're going to be addicted. Typically, you're going to be addicted to a couple of meds, and that don't make you feel any different than the drugs you were on. They're just legal and prescription. And then they say, if I miss my meds, if I don't get the refill in time, if Walgreens is closed because it's a holiday, I'm going to call my dealer and go get my old fix. Mm-hmm. And it's just there's issues like that. And that was like my big thing was, let's fix this problem. I mean, I can't fix addiction, but I can definitely help provide solutions that help you think clearer, which helps you make better decisions, and then to execute on those decisions, those good decisions. And that little bit of success that dopaminergic feedback loop, as Andrew Huberman would say, is that reward system will make you feel good about that good decision, even if it's something you normally wouldn't do. And that's going to compel you to maybe, make another good decision and stay on that trail of upward spiral of success.
So could this help people that have addictions? Have you tried that? Have you experimented with that?
Huge.
And it works?
Huge. Yeah. A couple of things. One is not only addiction, like recovery. Now I'm not a medical professional, and I'm speaking out of turn. If I end up saying medical terms, please, write that off. But we have thousands of customers who came to us because they were either in an addictive state or they were in a sick state. We call our spectrum sick to superhuman. And so they would come to us either because they felt like crap, they were burned out, or they were their brain was failing them, or they had a condition, a chronic issue, or they had an addiction, or they wanted to get off the thing, whether it was just weed, or whether it was cigarettes, or whether it was alcohol, or whether it was Adderall, or whether it was any number of drugs. And they said, how do I, and of course we always have to say, you see your medical professional before you ever, go in this route. But you and I both know, with that caveat in place, that when people realize that they can make a dramatic improvement in their health, and they can move from sick to suboptimal to optimal to super optimal to superhuman, that the change in their life and how the rest of the world, how they interface with the rest of the world, and how the rest of the world feels about them, can be so personally gratifying that it's kind of hard to go back, hard to leave that place. And I'm not about, I don't want to sell you I don't want to sell you a replacement for your drug just so you have another addiction. I want to provide a solution that is going to, over time, change your mind.
Yeah. So it becomes more like something you desire, not. So I always say it's commitment versus compliance, right? So right now, when they're committed to their drug, but out of compliance, they're trying your product, right? So you want that to flip, that your product becomes what they're committed to. I was talking to one of the trainers at the gym and asking about one of their clients, and she was too busy at the holidays. I'm like, we're all too busy at the holidays. Sorry, right. But we do what's the most important to us, Yes. So that's kind of what I'm saying is what's important to you is something that's really simple and easy to do.
Yes. And the other side is, you want to have that kind of reaction you have the first time you had cotton candy, or the first time you had a slushie, and you was, oh my God, what is the, first time you had a really good steak at Ruth Chris, or, whatever happens to be your jam. Or for some people, the first time they have their first brewski, the first time they have their first whiskey, the first time you have your first bong hit, whatever your, whatever your jam is. So you want to create an environment where the thing that makes you better is the thing that you desire the most, because it works, it's efficacious, it's experiential, it's fun, and it makes you better. When you get to that level, everything changes. Everything changes, because the person that you are, if you get to the point where you're like relatively happy with the person that you are, you're not beating yourself up, your self-talk is positive and encouraging, the people around you are loving and kind, and you've gotten rid of the people that suck the life out of you, and right, those vampires, those emotional vampires, psychic vampires, and you've got those things going, elevating your level of contribution, because you're no longer having to just be in maintenance mode with your life, and you're now in performance mode. That is a profound impact on everyone around you. Yeah. I've got, I've got a couple of kids. I've got a son and a daughter. I've got a sweetheart who I love dearly. I've got incredible employees, and then I've got, over 100 associates that I work with in our company. And then I've got, all of my friends on Facebook and the rest. It's so nice to have abundance, and not just an abundance mindset and an abundance practice and a meditation practice, but the ability to apply that because I've got a surplus of stuff, of life that I can share with people. And it allows you to have that thing. There was a time in my life, Tracy, where I was so burned out. I was so just absolutely devoid of any surplus that I couldn't help people because it would detract from my own ability to operate.
Mm-hmm.
It's both a mindset and a reality, right?
Yeah, I always say you can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to make sure your love cup is full, and then you can better serve everyone else without resentment,
Yes. Yeah.
So,
And that's so well said, because without resentment, because what happens when you have the heart to give and you don't have the abundance because you're sick, right? Or you're just not healthy, or you're not clear, then you do that. You go, okay, I'm going to give anyhow. And I hate that son of a bitch for sucking the life out of me the last 10% that I had.
Yeah. One of my favorite mantras, or I guess is a good word, is it's a verse. It's for God loves a cheerful giver. And,
Yes.
I have people in my house that make me say that verse to myself often to remind myself to be a cheerful giver and not be, begrudging about giving, but just do it cheerfully. So, okay. So before we run out of time, so am I hearing you say that you have one product and it's customized for each individual, or do you have stuff that's just kind of people can get?
Darling, if you go to nootopia.com, and I think we've got a link for you, it'll probably be in your show notes, I'm sure. And Vida has, yes, it is. HEG10. If you go to nootopia.com / HEG genius, right? HEG genius, and put in HEG10 as your coupon code. You get 10% off. And what it is a kit. And the kit is 9 separate components, 9 separate products that each articulate a different state of being, and you can combine them to make a combined state, operating state. But wait, there's more.
But wait.
ShamWow! We just came out with for the last 7 years, I've been working diligently, and thank God for Matt Gallant and team, because they really accelerated the progress on one of the most, I think that one of the sayings we have around the shop right now is sleep is the world's most powerful stimulant. If you don't have good sleep, right, you don't feel good the next day. And every one of your biological factors, the things that wrap up your biological performance, are at a sub-performance level.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is we created a thing called Sleep Breakthrough, which is a drink mix. It's really great. No melatonin. It is incredible for deep REM and your delta sleep cycles, which are the key sleep parameters that most of your Oura rings and Fitbits will measure. There you go.
So, okay, let me tell you what last night I did, my ring wasn't charged. So I am usually getting, let's see, the night before I had a 94, 87. Oh, that's because we had company the night before. I was up late. 94. Yeah, I get pretty good sleep scores.
I
but
love
my
it.
husband
That's incredible.
Does not. He is not a good sleeper.
And he's 64. And so, of course, he's got a pineal gland decay happens, as well as some, there's some metabolic issues that can happen, as well as organic testosterone levels. By the way, just so you know, in 3 or 4 months, we're coming out with a testosterone product I've been building for the last 10 years. That is a rock star solution. It really works. It's very powerful. And and then we also have some female products as well that are coming out. But so here's sleep breakthrough. And then if you want, there's a thing called sleep onset, like speeding up the amount of time it takes to get to sleep so that you shorten that. Or if you happen to be one of those people that wakes up at 3 or 4 a.m., can't get back to sleep, you wake up at 7, groggy, and you feel like you just didn't sleep at all last night. We have a new thing called Dream Optimizer, which is exactly that. It's a REM cycle optimizer, and it helps you get to sleep fast, but it doesn't keep you asleep. So Matt uses it when he's traveling internationally or from the East Coast to the West Coast. He'll take a 4, 5, 6 sprays. He'll put his eye mask on, turn on some binaural audio, and he'll cruise from New York to San Francisco and wake up sharp as a tack.
That's cool.
I use it. Yeah, it's great. I use it as a way if I've screwed up my sleep cycle from whether it's a power nap or I took the wrong, I got too much stimulant later on in the day, those kinds of things. I'll take this and then I'll augment it and use this. Like if I'm watching Yellowstone till 2 a.m.
Binge watching. We're all caught up.
Oh, that's yeah. Did you do 1823 yet? And 18.
Yeah, and they're lucky they didn't do a season 2 because I would have boycotted them. Have you seen it?
Yes, just finished it.
Oh, I was so mad at the end of that show. I'm like,
yeah.
I was sobbing. I'm like, that's it. If they have a season 2, I'm not watching it. Well, they never did, I don't think. So
no, they didn't actually announce they're not. So,
oh, good. That's because everybody felt the same way as me.
Yep. So it's great. So we're doing that. And here's another one, I think. And by the way, we're doing the ultimate sleep or the ultimate skin solution. We're coming out with next year, early part of this year. So we've been working really diligently on collagen, hyaluronic acid, and some of the other components and how to get them to be bioavailable and actually enter the cell and work on the dermis, epidermis, and the rest.
Topically?
No, internally. We are doing a skin cream. We're doing a red light. Actually, we're doing a laser mask. My background is in laser technology. And so we're doing a laser mask, which is really cool. But this product, which Chastity, my sweetheart, is the core developer of this. I was making highly concentrated mushroom capsules, and she smelled as I got the concentrations from 1-to-1 to 10-to-1 to 20-to-1 to 50-to-1 to 100-to-1. They start tasting more and more, smelling more and more chocolatey or coffee-ish, right? And she's a chef, an incredible chef. And so she started playing with them, cooking up things with red reishi and with chaga and with cordyceps and with lion's mane. And I was capping these things, thinking I'm going to be a badass and make another cool cap. She's going, no. Let's make this. And she started realizing that these mushrooms have certain molecules that are cofactors in how collagen enters the cell and feeds the cell. And so we made a thing called Collagenius. It's a 4 mushroom blend and collagen. It's incredible. It tastes delicious without having to flavor it. It tastes incredible. And you can either add it to your coffee or you can take it with milk, with water, or milk. And it makes a great shake, chocolate shake, or we have a new flavor as well coming out. Yeah, it's incredible. So boom.
You guys are just jamming. Wow.
Right?
That sounds great. I love what I do is I take mushrooms. I take like 5 different mushroom powders, whisk them all up in a bowl, and then I put them in a jar and I add a tablespoon to my bulletproof decaf coffee because I had an adrenal problem. And so then I switched. I only do the 4 Sigmatic coffee.
Yep.
So I do a tablespoon of that and a tablespoon of bulletproof decaf for my first cup before the gym. And then after the gym, I just have another decaf, and that's when I put the mushrooms in. But that sounds like I could put that in instead.
Oh, it's really powerful. I guarantee you'll feel it's efficacious. You feel it right away. You'll feel brain tingles and the neurogenesis happening, the BDNF. And would you mind if I sent you some of this?
No, I'd love it. Thank you. No, that's awesome.
I'll send you and your husband some sleep stuff. and I'll get you a box of our nootropics from Nootopia as well.
Oh, fun.
So,
Yeah, I'd love to try it all. And I can let you know how I feel because I feel good.
yeah,
Like,
you look great. You look
oh,
great.
thank you. Yeah, so do you. You don't look your age at all.
I love it.
But I want to continue down this path. I look at both of my parents and they both aged really poorly. And I don't want to go that way. And I obviously started doing things differently from the get-go. But I know, and I want to tell our listeners that you are not stuck with your parents' genes. Like there's a whole thing about epigenetics where you can turn those switches on and off and start today to take care of yourself and do a 180 on the lifestyle you're on. And, listen to what Dr. Noots, Mr. Noots, the doctor has to say about this.
Tracy, where are you calling in from?
Where am I calling in from? I am in California.
Which part?
About a half an hour south of San Jose. We live on a little small farm between Morgan Hill and Gilroy.
Oh, love it. Okay. I've spent my Air Force years in Merced, Atwater, kind of that Central Valley area. And then I lived in Newport Beach and missed that. Actually, I really miss Newport. It was one of my favorite places in the world.
Well, I love where we live because we're close to the mountains. Like we literally live across the street from a hiking trail and only 45 minutes from the beach. So,
well, here's a thing, one of the things I loved about living in Newport Beach in Southern California was obviously everybody's beautiful. Most of the majority of the people that I met were very fit. Of course, I hung out with athletes, and I helped launch a company called Trike. It's a 3-wheeled scooter that you stand on and go back and forth, and so did that. But I now living in the Midwest, it's a very freaky thing for somebody that is used to people being very mobile and dynamic. Is the farmers and their spouses lean on the shopping cart as they go through the Hy-Vee store, the local grocery store, which is like, which would be Ralph's down there, like Ralph's. And one is the organic section is, the size of one of my walls in my office here. And the other is, and there's no dedicated organic stores like we have in California and Oregon, Washington. And you can see their life force has faded. And these are people my age. I'm 61 and I do almost everything that I did when I was in my 20s. Had I more time, if I had as much time as I had in my 20s, I would do those things as well, right? And it's really at first it was depressing, and now it's one of those things where I am on a mission to help reverse the cataclysmic aging factors that are driving these people. Yeah, and I think it's glyphosate and and a lack of accepting the lack of mobility, accepting aging in a non-healthy way.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because they don't know any better. They don't know what they don't know, right?
Right.
So it's about inspiring them to realize that they have a choice and they're not stuck in that way. But I will tell you, for the last year and a half, I've been volunteering for an international humanitarian organization, and all of that stuff, like glyphosate and all the toxins and things that people are bringing into, these big corporations are bringing into our Mother Earth, our environment, are gonna be going away like soon. So me
and Zach Bush will lead the charge.
We are stepping into a new world pretty soon here, and all that garbage is going to go away and people are going to be inspired to change. So, okay, I have got to get going here. So can you please tell me, or tell the listeners rather, how they can find you?
So outside of Mark Effinger, EFF as in Frank, INGER, on Facebook, and you go to Nootopia on Facebook as well. I contribute to our threads that we have going on there. It's a private, but everybody's invited. But it's a nice great positive place to learn. And our the girl that runs it for us is the most incredible employee partner in crime when it comes to this stuff. So that's a blast. And then of course, if you go to nootopia.com/HEG genius and put in HEG 10, you'll get a 10% discount on anything you pick up there. 365-day guarantee return policy, no problems, no risk. And I guarantee you will have an improvement in your life by taking some of these things and in basically moving from sick to superhuman.
Sounds lovely. And also, just when you feel better, you make better choices. So yes, that goes without saying. Awesome. It was just absolutely lovely having you on today. You are so much fun. And I really, Mark, I look forward to trying these superhuman things, and maybe like give me a couple months and you can come back and I'll share my experience with you.
Oh, you know how much, you have no idea how much I'd love that. I live by the texts I get from our clients who say, thank you for changing my life. Thank you for getting off that. Thank you for getting me on this. It's great. So thank you, Tracy. Really appreciate your mission, by the way, as well.
Awesome. Absolutely. You are so cute and so much fun. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on today. Okay, that was super fun, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. For the link to the discounted products, please visit the show notes page at highenergygirl.com/show. And you can use the discount code capital HEG10 at nootopia.com. Thank you so much for listening. Go out and make it a great day. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.